Today I'm going to discuss the most important period, the English Renaissance period. Of the English literature, the English Renaissance, an era of the cultural revival and poetic evolution, starting in the late 15th century and spilling into the revolutionary years of the 17th century, stand as an early summit of poetry achievement, the era in which the modern sense of English poetry began. So this paragraph is really very important, in which we have discussed about the English Renaissance. The English Renaissance period of the English literature, an era of the cultural revival and poetic evolutions. So it is a period of cultural revival and poetic evolution, starting in the late 15th century and spilling into the revolutionary years of the 17th centuries, stand as an early summit of poetry achievement. The era in which the modern sense of English poetry began. So here we have some important questions related to this period, which have been repeated in your exams. The Renaissance period started in 16th century. In English literature, the period from the 1500 to 1600 is called the period of the Renaissance period. Renaissance means reveal, new birth and new spirit. The period followed by the Middle Ages in Europe was the Renaissance period, when the world was reborn in many ways. 1500 to 1600. The Renaissance first began in Italy. In which field the Renaissance began in Italy? Art and architecture. The Renaissance began in Italy in which century? 15th century. The country which became the most powerful nation in Europe in the late 16th century is England. So these are the most important questions, which is very important, and which have been repeated in the UGC NET and other competitive exams like TGT, PGT exams. And here really wants to make you understand in a very well manner in order to analyze and remember all the important points. So here I'm going to recall all the questions again. The Renaissance period started in the 16th century. In English literature, the period from 1500 to 1600 is called the period of the Renaissance period. The Renaissance means reveals new birth and new spirit. The period followed by the Middle Ages in Europe was the Renaissance period, when the world was reborn in many ways. 1500 to 1600. The Renaissance first began in Italy. In which field the Renaissance began in Italy? Art and architecture. The Renaissance began in Italy in which century? 15th century. The country which became the most powerful nation in Europe in the late 16th century is England. So these are the most important questions, and these are the most important points you have to remember while you are uh, going to attempt your exam. And this period is known for the cultural revival and poetic evolution, which is starting in the late 15th century and spilling into the revolutionary years of the 17th century, and stand as an early summit of poetry achievement, the era in which the modern sense of English poetry began. So, in this era, the modern sense of English poetry is began. So basically, this period is known for the cultural revival, poetic evolutions, and which is started in the 15th century and spilling into the revolutionary years of the 17th century, stand as the early summit of poetry achievement, the era in which the modern sense of English poetry began. I hope you like this video, which is very important. Thank you so much.